So for the issues for this case, which rule of law should be used, how should a given element of rule be defined, and what legal tests should be applied. Firstly, there is no specific rule of law that applies in this case. Like what is already mentioned in the introduction, there are three elements that we must identify in order to determine whether the defendant is liable to negligence or not. The first one is duty of care. The plaintiff must show that the defendant had a specific duty that they owe to them. We can use the neighbor principle to identify to whom this duty of care we owe. Second, the damages. The plaintiff must be able to measure the damages that they suffered, which means that they must be able to quantify them into an actual and verifiable amount. There are two tests that can be used to determine whether the damage suffered by the plaintiff is the result of the defendant's breach of duty. The first one is the but-for test. The question that must be asked for the but-for test is, but the defendant's action or breach of duty, would the plaintiff have suffered the damages anyway? If the answer is yes, they can conclude that the defendant's breach of duty did not cause the plaintiff's injury. Therefore, the defendant is not negligent. The second test is the reaperness of damage. If the defendant failed the but-for test, the defendant will only liable if it's reasonably foreseeable that his conduct will cause some degree of damages to the plaintiff. And lastly, the breach of care. After the plaintiff demonstrates that the defendant owed them a duty of reasonable care, they must then prove that the defendant breached that duty that they owe to the plaintiff. This is usually done by analyzing whether the defendant was able to foresee any possible risk that could impact the victim's safety or health. To determine whether there has been a breach is the reasonable man test. This test is to see whether the defendant's conduct fell below the standard of care which is expected to a reasonable man. So thank you.